Eve Carson was born on November 19, 1985, in Athens, Georgia, beginning a life marked by focus, determination, and an unwavering commitment to learning. From an early age, she demonstrated a level of drive that consistently set her apart. Throughout her school years, Eve's motivation was evident in everything she pursued. In high school, she balanced an ambitious workload with a remarkable list of responsibilities. She served as vice president of the student council, where she helped organize student activities and contributed to leadership planning. Beyond academics, she volunteered at a nursing home, offering companionship to elderly residents, and at a shelter for abused teens, where she provided support to vulnerable young people. Alongside these commitments, she worked as a congressional page, gaining early insight into government operations while also assisting in a stem cell research lab, a role that reflected her scientific curiosity and disciplined work ethic. Despite the demanding nature of these activities, Eve maintained strong academic performance, reinforcing her reputation as an exceptional student. Following her graduation, Eve was accepted into the University of North Carolina, where she pursued a double major in political science and biology. Her academic excellence earned her a highly competitive scholarship, further acknowledging her dedication and achievements. On campus, she quickly emerged as a respected leader, taking on significant roles in numerous student organizations. Her commitment to service continued as she taught science at a local elementary school, offering guidance and encouragement to young students. Eve also participated in volunteer projects abroad, extending her impact beyond the United States. She assisted doctors in Ecuador during a summer program, studied for a semester in Cuba, and joined a research team in Egypt, contributing to meaningful work in each location. By her final year at UNC, Eve was widely regarded as one of the university's most accomplished students. Her academic success, leadership experience, and dedication to service shaped a future filled with potential. Even before graduation, she had secured a job offer, positioning her for a promising career. On the night of March 5, 2008, Eve Carson, 22 years old and in her final year at the University of North Carolina, was living off campus with a small group of close friends. It was a routine evening for Eve, who had chosen to stay in and focus on her studies rather than join the social activities of her peers. Around 1:30 a.m., her roommates prepared to leave for a party. They invited Eve to come along, but she declined, preferring to remain at home to review her coursework and prepare for upcoming classes. The decision reflected her consistent dedication to academics and her methodical approach to responsibilities. For the next few hours, Eve's presence in the house seemed normal. Her study materials still spread across the table, her computer active as she continued her work quietly. When her friends returned home at approximately 4:30 a.m., they were met with an immediate and alarming sight. The front door was wide open, and the lights inside the house remained on. There was no sign of Eve. Her absence was made more concerning by the fact that her car was also missing, a detail that immediately suggested that something was seriously wrong. Confusion quickly gave way to alarm as her friends attempted to contact her by phone, calling multiple times with no answer. The lack of response deepened their concern, but they initially held on to the hope that she had stepped out unexpectedly or was momentarily unreachable, expecting that she might return shortly. As hours passed with no word from Eve, the growing unease turned into genuine fear. By the following morning, her continued absence prompted one of her friends to take the decisive step of contacting law enforcement. When police arrived, investigators began piecing together a timeline of the evening. They learned that Eve had last been seen studying at home around 1:30 a.m., and that she had remained at the residence long after her roommates had left. The combination of the unlocked door, her missing car, and her failure to answer calls indicated that she had vanished under suspicious circumstances. The sense of urgency intensified as investigators considered the possibility that Eve had encountered a serious threat, setting the stage for the devastating discovery that would soon confirm the worst fears of her friends and family. Early on, the morning of March 5, 2008, police received a call from a woman who lived about a mile from Eve Carson's off-campus residence. She reported being awakened by the sound of gunfire, followed immediately by a scream. Responding officers arrived at the scene within minutes and discovered the body of a young woman lying on the ground. She had no identification, no phone, and no personal belongings, leaving investigators with little more than the evidence of multiple gunshot wounds to determine what had occurred. The victim's appearance and condition suggested a violent and sudden death. Though her identity remained unknown at the time, later that morning, detectives met with Eve's friends to gather information about her disappearance. When shown a photograph of the victim, one of her friends immediately recognized her as Eve Carson. The confirmation brought a swift and devastating reality to light. Within hours of being last seen at home, Eve had been killed and her body was found a mile from her residence. Investigators quickly began reconstructing the timeline, establishing that she had been at home studying at 1:30 well after her roommates left for the party, and had somehow ended up outside her neighborhood by 5 a.m. The discovery of Eve's missing car, wallet, and credit card suggested a robbery could have been a motive, while forensic examination ruled out sexual assault as a factor in her death. Investigators also reviewed phone records, which showed her last signal had pinged from a cell tower near a highway outside town, though the device itself was never recovered. These details pointed to a calculated effort to remove traces of her presence. The combination of her disappearance, the violent circumstances of her death, and the missing personal items established the foundation for the investigation, raising urgent questions about who was responsible and how Eve had been transported from her home to the site where her body was discovered. Police were now faced with the difficult task of identifying suspects and piecing together the events of that early morning, knowing that every detail could be critical in bringing her killers to justice. As investigators searched for leads in Eve Carson's murder, attention quickly turned to her missing car and the timeline of her final hours. A vehicle matching the description of Eve's car was discovered abandoned just a few miles from her residence. Authorities immediately sent it to forensics for analysis, hoping fingerprints or DNA might reveal the identity of the perpetrator. Meanwhile, examination of Eve's computer revealed it had remained active until approximately 3:30 a.m., confirming that she had stayed at home for at least 2 hours after her roommates had left. These details provided the first tangible clues in an otherwise confounding case. Detectives also reviewed Eve's bank activity. Only 18 minutes after her last known computer use, 2 separate withdrawals totaling $700 were made from her account. The first ATM was located near a shopping center on the far side of town, and security footage captured a man sitting inside Eve's car operating her credit card. A second figure appeared in the back seat, possibly Eve, though the image quality was insufficient to confirm. Subsequent attempts to use her card at other ATMs yielded no footage, limiting the investigators' ability to identify those involved. On March 7th, an alert revealed another attempted withdrawal at a 24-hour convenience store with a working surveillance camera. The footage captured a different individual using Eve's card, raising the possibility of more than one person participating in the crime or the card being handed to an accomplice. Investigators released both sets of images to the public, hoping that someone would recognize either individual during this period. The campus and local community reacted with shock and fear. Students and residents reported suspicious activity in hopes of aiding the investigation. Despite the volume of tips, no immediate breakthroughs occurred. The combination of physical evidence, surveillance footage, and bank records, however, laid the foundation for the eventual identification of suspects and the reconstruction of the events that led to Eve's tragic death. The investigation into Eve Carson's murder took a critical turn when authorities received an anonymous tip on March 12th, identifying one of the individuals captured on the convenience store surveillance footage. The caller named the man as 21-year-old Deario Atwater, whose background revealed a long criminal record including arrests for robbery, assault, drug offenses, and other crimes. Despite having served time in the past, Atwater had been released early on multiple occasions. Investigators quickly obtained his old mugshots and compared them to the footage. The resemblance was unmistakable, giving police probable cause to bring him in for questioning. Atwater denied involvement, But law enforcement had sufficient evidence to place him into custody. As detectives delved further, they uncovered another key figure, 17-year-old Lawrence Levette, who had already accumulated a criminal record despite his age. Review of the first ATM footage showed Levette driving Eve's car during the initial withdrawals, identifying him as the person assisting in the theft of her funds. Unlike Atwater, Levette did not surrender immediately and barricaded himself inside his home, forcing a SWAT team to intervene before he could be apprehended. Once both suspects were in custody, each denied responsibility for Eve's death, but the evidence against them continued to mount. Investigators analyzed cell phone tower data and determined that both Atwater and Levette had been near Eve's neighborhood the night of the murder, even though they lived in a different city. The combination of surveillance footage, bank records, and location data led detectives to conclude that Eve had been chosen at random as a target for robbery. She had been forced to drive to multiple ATMs while her attackers withdrew money from her account. This pattern of movement explained how she was separated from her home and transported to the location where her body was later found. Atwater and Levette's apprehension marked a significant breakthrough in the case, providing investigators with the first clear pathway to understanding the sequence of events that led to Eve Carson's tragic death. Following the arrests of Deario Atwater and Lawrence Levette, prosecutors began preparing their cases with the goal of holding both accountable for Eve Carson's murder. Given the brutality of the crime, authorities announced they would seek the death penalty for Atwater, while Levette, as a minor, faced a maximum sentence of life in prison. With both suspects denying involvement, prosecutors offered Atwater a plea deal. If he pleaded guilty, the death penalty would be removed from consideration. Atwater accepted, providing a full confession and giving law enforcement critical insight into the events of March 5th, according to Atwater's confession. He and Levette had planned to commit a robbery to obtain quick cash. Levette had contacted Atwater with the idea of targeting someone on or near the university campus. While driving through a neighborhood, they noticed Eve through a window and decided she would be their victim. Armed with guns, they forced her from her home into her own car and drove her to multiple ATMs to withdraw money using her credit card. Atwater described Eve pleading with them to release her, promising she would not tell anyone. But they continued their plan without hesitation. After reaching the daily withdrawal limit of $700, they transported Eve to a secluded area on the edge of town. There, Atwater admitted, they shot her multiple times using 2 different firearms. He also revealed that Eve had requested they pray with her in her final moments, a plea that was ignored. The confession provided prosecutors with the sequence of events, the motives behind the actions, and confirmation that the two had acted together during the crime. In April 2010. 2 years after the murder, Atwater was sentenced to life in prison, plus 30 additional years, avoiding the death penalty due to his plea. During sentencing, he apologized to Eve's parents and acknowledged the punishment he deserved. Levette, on the other hand, opted for trial. In December 2011, despite arguments of innocence from his defense, the combination of Atwater's confession and overwhelming evidence led to Levette's conviction and a life sentence. This section details how the legal process unfolded, establishing accountability for the actions that resulted in Eve Carson's tragic and untimely death. The aftermath of Eve Carson's murder had a profound impact on her community, her university, and the state of North Carolina. In the immediate months following the crime, grief and shock were felt across the campus and the wider city. Eve had been widely known and admired for her leadership, academic achievements, and dedication to community service. Her sudden and violent death left students, faculty, and residents struggling to understand how such a tragedy could occur. The case also prompted concern for personal safety, as many realized that a home invasion and robbery could happen anywhere, even in a familiar neighborhood. Eve's murder influenced legislative action in North Carolina. In February following the crime, lawmakers passed legislation that increased penalties and established stricter procedures for individuals involved in gang-related offenses. This law, which took effect on December 1st of the same year, was a direct response to the circumstances surrounding Eve's death. It reflected a broader effort to prevent violent crimes and hold offenders accountable under more stringent guidelines her university honored Eve's life and contributions by creating a scholarship in her name, ensuring that future students would benefit from her legacy. A memorial garden was also established on campus, serving as a permanent tribute to her accomplishments and the positive impact she had on those around her. These initiatives preserved her memory and provided a source of inspiration for students and community members alike. Additionally, the influence of Eve's life extended to individuals she had personally touched. One of her close friends became a finalist on American Idol, sharing publicly that Eve's guidance and encouragement had inspired him to take a risk and pursue his dreams. He credited her with giving him the courage and determination to audition, stating that without her influence, he may never have found the confidence to follow his aspirations. Eve Carson's story continues to resonate, not only as a cautionary tale but also as a testament to the lasting effect one dedicated and accomplished individual can have on her community, her peers, and the broader world.